The pregnancy test sat on our bathroom counter like a tiny plastic oracle, two pink lines declaring what Ashley and I had been hoping for during 3 long years of trying. I found her in our bedroom, tears streaming down her face as she held the test in trembling hands. "Jake," she whispered, her voice breaking, "we're going to have a baby." The world seemed to stop. Every fertility appointment, every negative test, every month of disappointment suddenly felt worth it. I swept her into my arms, spinning her around our small bedroom while she laughed through her tears. "Are you serious? This is real?" I set her down gently, my hands immediately going to her still flat stomach. "We're really going to be parents?" "The test doesn't lie," she said, wiping her eyes. "I took 3 of them, all positive." That evening, I cooked her favorite meal, grilled salmon with asparagus, while she sat at our kitchen island, one hand constantly resting on her belly. The white wine I'd planned to open remained unopened. Instead, we toasted with sparkling cider. "I can't believe it," I said, raising my glass. "After everything we've been through." Ashley's smile flickered for just a moment, so briefly I almost missed it. "I know. It's like a miracle. Should we call your parents? Mine?" I was already planning, converting the spare room into a nursery, researching cribs online, calculating how much we'd need to save. "Let's wait until after the first appointment," she said quickly. "You know, make sure everything's okay first." I nodded, understanding her caution. We'd learned to be careful with our hope. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Ashley slept beside me. My mind raced with possibilities, teaching our child to code, family vacations, little league games. I'd never felt happiness this pure, this complete. The next 2 weeks crawled by. I found myself researching everything: what foods Ashley should avoid, how to baby-proof our house, the best strollers on the market. Kyle, my business partner and best friend, caught me looking at cribs during a work meeting. "Dude, you're glowing more than Ashley probably is," he said after our clients left. "This is really happening?" 13 weeks on Friday, I said, unable to keep the grin off my face. "First ultrasound appointment." "Man, I'm so happy for you both. After everything you've been through." Kyle shook his head. "This is going to be amazing." Ashley had been different these past 2 weeks, quieter, more distant. When I asked about it, she blamed pregnancy hormones and fatigue. She'd started working later, coming home after I'd already eaten dinner. Her boss, Richard, had apparently given her some big marketing campaign that required extra hours. "I just want to prove myself, especially now," she'd explained. "With the baby coming, I need to show I'm still committed to my career." It made sense. Ashley had always been ambitious, always pushing to climb the corporate ladder at Blackwood Industries. I respected that about her. Friday morning arrived with unexpected rain. We drove to Dr. Martinez's office in comfortable silence, Ashley's hand resting in mine on the center console. She seemed nervous, fidgeting with her purse strap. "Everything's going to be fine," I assured her. "This is the good part. We finally get to see our baby." The waiting room felt different this time. For 3 years, we'd sat in these same chairs hoping for good news. Now, we were here as expectant parents. The other couples looked at us with knowing smiles. "Ashley Brennan," the nurse called, and we followed her back to the familiar ultrasound room. Dr. Martinez greeted us with her usual warm smile. "Congratulations, you two. I'm so excited to finally be doing this scan for celebration instead of diagnostics." Ashley settled onto the examination table while I pulled my chair close enough to hold her hand. The gel went onto her belly, and then the ultrasound wand began its sweep. "There we are," Dr. Martinez said, adjusting the screen so we could see clearly. "Beautiful, healthy baby. Everything looks absolutely perfect." On the screen, I could make out the unmistakable shape of our child. Head, body, tiny limbs moving slightly. My throat tightened with emotion. How far along? Ashley asked, her voice strained. Let me take some measurements, Dr. Martinez said, clicking and dragging on the screen. She was quiet for a moment, calculating. Based on the size and development, you're 14 weeks along, maybe 14 and a half. The words hit me like a physical blow. 14 weeks. I did the math automatically. It's what I do, what my brain always does. 14 weeks ago was mid-March. I'd been in Austin for 2 weeks in March, setting up our new client's entire network infrastructure. Gone from March 10th through March 24th. Ashley's hand went rigid in mine. 14 weeks? I repeated, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. Are you sure? Very sure, Dr. Martinez said, still focused on the screen. The measurements are quite precise at this stage. Conception would have been around the 3rd week of March. The room felt like it was tilting. Ashley was staring at the ultrasound screen, but I could see her pulse racing in her neck. 14 weeks meant she'd gotten pregnant while I was in Texas. While I was 2 states away, working 18-hour days to launch a project that would secure our financial future. Jake? Dr. Martinez was looking at me with concern. Are you feeling all right? You look pale. I'm fine, I managed. Just overwhelming, you know? Seeing the baby for the first time. She smiled and printed several ultrasound photos for us. Everything looks wonderful. Ashley, I'll see you in 4 weeks for your next appointment. The car ride home was silent, except for the rain pattering against the windshield. Ashley stared out her window while I drove on autopilot, my mind spinning through dates and possibilities. Maybe Dr. Martinez was wrong. Maybe the measurements were off. Maybe I was remembering the trip dates incorrectly. But I wasn't. I never forget dates, especially work trips. March 10th through March 24th. I had the calendar entries, the flight confirmations, the hotel receipts. 14 weeks ago, I was installing servers in Austin while someone else was with my wife. We pulled into our driveway, and Ashley immediately headed for the house. I sat in the car for another minute, staring at the ultrasound photos. Our baby. Except maybe it wasn't. Inside, Ashley was already in the kitchen, making herself tea with shaking hands. Ash, I said carefully, setting my keys on the counter. We need to talk about the timing. She didn't turn around. What about it? 14 weeks. That puts conception around mid-March. So, I was in Austin from March 10th to March 24th. You remember the TechFlow project? Now she turned, her face pale but defiant. Dates can be wrong, Jake. Ultrasounds aren't perfect. Dr. Martinez seemed pretty confident. I kept my voice level, controlled. 14, maybe 14 and a half weeks. Ashley set down her mug hard enough to slosh tea onto the counter. What are you saying? I'm saying the math doesn't work, Ash. I wasn't here. So you think I cheated? Her voice rose, taking on that wounded tone she used when she wanted to flip an argument. You think I got pregnant by someone else? I think we need to figure out how you got pregnant when your husband was in another state. We stared at each other across our kitchen island. Ashley's eyes filled with tears, but something in her expression looked more like panic than hurt. I can't believe you're doing this, she said. The happiest day of our marriage, and you're accusing me of having an affair. I'm not accusing. I'm asking for an explanation. The explanation is that doctors make mistakes. Ultrasounds can be off by weeks. I pulled out my phone and opened the calendar. March 10th through 24th. Want to see the flight confirmations? Hotel receipts? I can show you credit card statements proving I was in Texas. Ashley's composure cracked. She gripped the edge of the counter, knuckles white. Jake, please, don't do this. Don't do what? Ask questions about my wife's pregnancy? You're being paranoid. This is crazy. But I could see it in her face now. The guilt she'd been carrying. The reason for her distance these past weeks. The reason she'd been working late, avoiding my eyes, flinching when I touched her stomach. Who is he, Ashley? The question hung in the air like smoke. Ashley opened her mouth, closed it, then burst into tears. Not the happy tears from 2 weeks ago, but deep, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. I'm sorry, she gasped between sobs. I'm so sorry, Jake. I never meant for this to happen. The confirmation hit harder than I'd expected, even though I'd already known. Hearing her admit it made it real in a way that calculations couldn't. Who? I asked again. She couldn't look at me. Richard, my boss. It happened, and then it was over, but then she gestured helplessly at her stomach. Richard Blackwood. I'd met him at a few company parties, tall, silver-haired, expensive suits, married with kids, rich enough to afford things I couldn't. How long? My voice sounded like it was coming from someone else. It wasn't long, just a few weeks. It ended before you came back from Austin. That's not what I asked. How long has this been going on? Ashley wiped her eyes, smearing mascara across her cheek. Since February. But Jake, it's over. It has been over. 6 months. While I'd been working extra hours to build our future, while we'd been trying to have a baby, while I'd been planning romantic dinners and weekend getaways. 6 months of lies. Were you planning to tell me? I asked. Ever? She shook her head miserably. I thought, when the baby came, you'd love it anyway. You'd be such a good father, and it wouldn't matter whose. It wouldn't matter? I stared at her. You were going to let me raise another man's child without knowing? You'd be the father in every way that counts. Except biology, except truth, except the fact that you destroyed our marriage. Ashley reached for me across the counter. Jake, please, we can work through this. People do. The baby needs a father, and you're the only father I want for this child. I stepped back from her outstretched hand. I need some air. Don't leave. Please don't leave. But I was already walking toward the door. I drove aimlessly for an hour, my mind strangely calm despite the chaos Ashley had just dropped into my life. By the time I came home, she was in bed with the lights off, pretending to sleep. I spent that night in the guest room, staring at the ceiling and planning. The next morning, Ashley tried to act like nothing had happened. She made coffee and toast, humming quietly while she moved around the kitchen. When I came downstairs, she smiled at me with desperate hope. I was thinking we could go look at cribs today, she said. There's a baby store in Westfield that has great reviews. I poured coffee and sat at the counter. We need to talk about what happens next. Her smile faltered. What do you mean? I mean our marriage, Ashley. You cheated on me for months and got pregnant by another man. We can't just pretend that didn't happen. But we can work through it. Couples do it all the time. Marriage counseling, therapy. She was talking faster now, her voice getting higher. This baby could bring us closer together. This baby isn't mine. It could be. I looked at her steadily. We both know it's not. Ashley set down her coffee mug and wrapped her arms around herself. So what are you saying? You want a divorce? I'm saying I need time to figure out what I want, and you need to figure out what you're going to do about Richard. What about Richard? He's the father, Ashley. He has responsibilities. Her face went white. You can't tell him. Why not? Because it's complicated. He's married, Jake. He has kids. So did you, technically. Didn't stop either of you. Ashley started crying again. Please don't tell him. He'll lose his job, his family. It would destroy everything. He should have thought of that before sleeping with a married employee. Jake, please, I'm begging you. I finished my coffee and stood up. I'm going to stay at Kyle's for a few days. We both need space to think. No! Ashley grabbed my arm. Don't go. We can fix this. I know we can fix this. But I was already walking away. I packed a bag while she stood in the doorway pleading, and by noon I was at Kyle's apartment, explaining why my marriage had just imploded. Jesus, Kyle said, after I'd laid out the whole story. I'm so sorry, man. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm not making any decisions while I'm emotional. Kyle opened 2 beers and handed me one. You know what you need to do, right? Lawyer up. Document everything. Protect yourself. I nodded. I'd been thinking the same thing during the drive over. Ashley had lied to me for months. She'd been planning to lie for the rest of our lives. Trust, once broken this completely, couldn't be repaired. But I wasn't going to act in anger. I was going to be smart about this. Over the next few days, Ashley called and texted constantly. She sent long, rambling messages about how sorry she was, how much she loved me, how we could make this work. She promised to quit her job, to never see Richard again, to do whatever it took to save our marriage. I didn't respond to any of it. Instead, I did research. I looked up divorce laws, adultery statutes, and asset protection strategies. I researched Richard Blackwood and his company, Blackwood Industries. I learned about his wife Elena, who came from old Connecticut money, and their 2 teenage children. I studied employee handbooks and corporate policies regarding workplace relationships. By the end of the week, I had a plan. The first step was documentation. I needed evidence that would hold up in court, proof of the affair, proof of the timeline, proof that Ashley had been deceiving me. Fortunately, I had advantages. I was a software engineer who specialized in data recovery and network security. Our home computers, phones, and accounts were all on systems I'd set up and maintained. On Sunday night, I came home while Ashley was at her sister's house. She'd been staying there most of the week, giving me space like I'd asked. I had about 3 hours before she returned. I started with our shared computer. Ashley thought she'd been clever, deleting text messages and clearing browser histories. But deleted doesn't mean gone, especially when you know what you're looking for. I ran recovery software on the hard drive and began pulling back months of erased data. The results were worse than I'd imagined. Text messages between Ashley and Richard going back to January, not February like she'd claimed. Detailed conversations about when I'd be traveling, how they could meet without being caught. Messages about expensive gifts Richard had bought her, dinners at restaurants I couldn't afford, weekend trips she'd lied about. But the worst were the messages from after I'd returned from Austin. Richard telling her he loved her. Ashley talking about leaving me. Plans for them to be together once she figured out how to handle Jake. Then came the pregnancy scare in early April. Ashley telling Richard she might be pregnant. His panic, demanding she get an abortion. Her refusal, saying she could make it work with me as the father. I screenshotted everything, backing it up to encrypted drives and secure cloud storage. Then I moved on to financial records. Ashley had been spending money I hadn't known about. Credit cards I didn't know existed, shopping trips that coincided with Richard's business travels. He'd been funding her lifestyle, buying her clothes and jewelry that she'd hidden from me. But there was more. Bank records showed regular cash deposits into Ashley's personal account, money that didn't come from her salary. Richard had been paying her, essentially. Whether he called it gifts or support, it looked like prostitution from a legal standpoint. I documented everything, creating a comprehensive timeline of the affair with supporting evidence. Financial records, text messages, deleted emails, even location data from Ashley's phone showing she'd been places she'd never told me about. By the time Ashley came home Sunday night, I had enough evidence to destroy both her and Richard in divorce court. "Jake," she called as she came through the front door. "Are you home?" I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop closed, looking perfectly normal. "Hey, how was your sister's?" Ashley looked surprised by my calm tone. She'd probably expected anger or cold silence. "It was good. She's worried about us." "That's understandable." She sat across from me cautiously. Have you thought about what we talked about? About trying to work things out? I have been thinking, I said. Actually, I've been thinking a lot. And? And I think we need to be completely honest with each other. No more lies, no more secrets. If we're going to try to save this marriage, everything has to be out in the open. Hope flickered in Ashley's eyes. Yes, absolutely. Whatever you want to know, I'll tell you. When did the affair really start? I told you, February. I pulled out my phone and opened one of the recovered text messages. This is from January 15th. Richard telling you how beautiful you looked at the office party. You responding that you can't stop thinking about him. Ashley's face went ashen. How did you... I'm a software engineer, Ash. Did you really think deleting messages would hide them from me? She stared at the phone, then at me. Jake, I can explain. No need. I've seen all of it. Every message, every deleted email, every lie you told me about where you were going. I scrolled through the screenshots. February 3rd, dinner at Le Bernardin while I thought you were at book club. February 18th, the Marriott downtown during your supposed girls' weekend. March 5th, him buying you that necklace you said was from your bonus. Ashley was crying now, but I felt nothing. The evidence had immunized me against her tears. It's all here, Ash. Months of planning around my travel schedule, discussions about my work projects so you'd know when I'd be gone, even conversations about how to hide the money he was giving you. He wasn't giving me money. $1,500, March 20th. $2,000, April 10th. Another $1,000 last month. Should I keep going? She put her head in her hands. Jake, please, let me explain. Explain what? How you've been essentially prostituting yourself with your boss? How you plan to trick me into raising his child? How you were planning to leave me once you figured out how to handle me? Ashley looked up sharply. You read that? I read everything, including the part where Richard wanted you to get an abortion and you refused because you thought you could fool me into believing the baby was mine. The kitchen was silent, except for Ashley's quiet sobs. Finally, she looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. What do you want me to say? Nothing. I want you to pack a bag and stay somewhere else while I decide what to do next. You're kicking me out? I'm asking you to give me space. The same thing I asked for a week ago, which you couldn't respect. Ashley stood up slowly. And if I refuse? Then I email all of this evidence to your parents, my parents, your sister, and HR at Blackwood Industries, tonight. The threat hung in the air between us. Ashley knew I wasn't bluffing. She could see it in my face. How long? She asked quietly. However long it takes me to figure out our future. She nodded and went upstairs to pack. An hour later, she was gone. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to downtown offices of Sterling and Associates, the law firm Kyle had recommended. Victoria Sterling was exactly what I'd hoped for. Sharp, experienced, and ruthless when it came to protecting her clients. Mr. Brennan, she said, after I'd explained the situation and shown her some of the evidence. I have to say, in 20 years of practicing family law, I've rarely seen a case this well documented. Will it be enough? More than enough. With evidence this comprehensive, we can pursue a fault-based divorce citing adultery. In this state, that means your wife would be entitled to very little in terms of asset division. Victoria explained the process. Because I could prove adultery with clear evidence, Ashley would likely receive minimal spousal support and a much smaller share of our marital assets. The house, my retirement accounts, and my business interests would largely remain mine. There's also the matter of the child, Victoria said carefully, even if it's not biologically yours. If you're married when it's born and your name goes on the birth certificate, you could be legally responsible for support. What are my options? File for divorce immediately. Make sure we establish paternity before the birth. If the child isn't yours, which seems likely given your evidence. You won't have any legal obligations. I signed the retainer agreement that afternoon. While Victoria began preparing divorce papers, I focused on the other part of my plan. Richard Blackwood. I'd researched Blackwood Industries thoroughly. It was a mid-sized marketing firm with about 200 employees and several high-profile clients. Richard was a senior vice president, married to Elena Blackwood Annie Pemberton, daughter of one of Connecticut's oldest banking families. More importantly, Blackwood Industries had strict policies about workplace relationships. Employees were required to disclose any romantic relationships with colleagues, especially those involving supervisory roles. Failure to disclose could result in termination. Richard had broken company policy, state adultery laws, and probably several other regulations I hadn't thought of yet. But I wasn't going to go after him directly. That would be too obvious, too traceable back to me. Instead, I was going to let his own actions destroy him. The first step was his wife. Elena Blackwood was active on social media, charity events, family photos, updates about their children's activities. She clearly loved her life and was proud of her family. She deserved to know what her husband was doing. I created an anonymous email account and spent an entire evening crafting the perfect message. Not accusatory or emotional, just factual. A concerned friend who thought she should know about her husband's activities. I attached selected evidence, photos of Richard and Ashley at restaurants, credit card statements showing gifts, text messages that were clearly romantic in nature. I sent the email on a Tuesday morning and waited. By Thursday, Elena had hired a private investigator. I knew this because Richard's behavior at work became erratic. Ashley mentioned it during one of her daily phone calls, begging me to reconsider the divorce. Richard was paranoid, suspicious, asking her to meet him at different places and times. Someone was watching him. He thinks his wife suspects something, Ashley said. He's terrified. Maybe he should be, I replied. Jake, if this comes out, it'll destroy him. His marriage, his job, everything. Did he think about that before starting an affair with a married employee? Ashley was quiet for a moment. He wants to meet with you. Excuse me? Richard wants to meet with you, to talk about the situation. I almost laughed. What could he possibly want to talk about? I don't know. He just said he wants to discuss things man to man. Tell him I said no. Jake, please. Maybe he can explain. Explain what? How he's been sleeping with my wife and paying her for it? How he got her pregnant and wanted her to get an abortion? What exactly needs explaining? Ashley started crying again. I just want this nightmare to end. It will. Soon. The next week, Elena Blackwood filed for divorce. The private investigator had apparently found evidence of multiple affairs over the years, not just Ashley. Richard had a pattern of targeting young female employees, promising them promotions and raises in exchange for sexual relationships. Within days, 3 other women came forward with similar stories. Blackwood Industries faced a potential avalanche of sexual harassment lawsuits. Richard was fired immediately. I learned about it from Ashley, who called me sobbing hysterically. They fired him, Jake. They fired him today. Security escorted him out of the building. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, though I wasn't sorry at all. He's ruined. His wife kicked him out. He lost his job. And now there are rumors he might face criminal charges. Criminal charges? Some of the other women are saying he threatened their jobs if they didn't sleep with him. That's sexual coercion or something. I whistled softly. I hadn't expected it to go that far, but I wasn't complaining. Ashley, I said carefully, you need to think about your own situation. If other women are coming forward about Richard, you might want to consider talking to a lawyer yourself. A lawyer? Why? Because you might be a victim too. Richard was your boss. He had power over your career. Even if you thought it was consensual, legally it might not be. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, I never thought of it that way. Think about it now. How did the affair start? Did he make the first move? Did he ever mention promotions or raises in connection with your relationship? I, yes. He said he was considering me for the senior marketing coordinator position, but that was just, I thought he meant because of my work. Did you get the position? Not yet, but he said, Ashley stopped. Oh my God. Ashley, you need to protect yourself. Richard is going down and he might try to take you with him. Claim you seduced him, or that you were the one who initiated everything. He wouldn't do that. He's lost everything, Ash. His marriage, his job, probably his reputation. Desperate people do desperate things. I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. What should I do? Talk to a lawyer. Document everything. Protect yourself. But if I come forward, everyone will know about the affair, about the baby. Everyone's going to know anyway. Better to control the narrative than let Richard control it. Ashley hung up without another word. 3 days later, she called back. I talked to a lawyer, she said. They think I have a case for sexual harassment and coercion. Good. You should pursue it. Jake, the lawyer asked about you, about our marriage. They want to know if you'd be willing to testify about how the affair affected you. I considered this. Testifying would put me in the spotlight, but it would also give me a public platform to tell my side of the story. And it would further destroy Richard's credibility. I'll think about it, I said. There's something else. The lawyer thinks I should establish paternity for the baby before it's born. For the legal case. This was exactly what I'd been hoping for. That sounds smart. It means Richard will have to take a paternity test, and so will you. I have no problem with that. Even though you know the baby isn't yours? Especially because I know the baby isn't yours, I corrected. The truth protects me, Ashley. It's lies that cause problems. The paternity test was scheduled for the following week. Richard, facing multiple lawsuits and criminal investigations, had no choice but to comply. His lawyer probably hoped the baby wasn't his, but we all knew better. While we waited for results, I moved forward with my own plans. Victoria had filed divorce papers citing adultery, and Ashley's lawyer had advised her not to contest it. Fighting would only bring more of her lies into the public record. Victoria had done exactly what she'd promised. Under our state's adultery laws, Ashley would receive minimal support and a small fraction of our shared assets. The house would be mine, along with my retirement accounts and business interests. Ashley would leave our marriage with essentially nothing except the car and whatever personal belongings she could prove were hers alone. It's harsh, Victoria acknowledged, but she committed adultery and attempted to defraud you regarding paternity. The law is very clear about consequences for that kind of deception. Ashley was living with her parents, working part-time at a retail job since losing her position at Blackwood Industries. The company had fired her as part of their effort to distance themselves from the scandal. Richard had been their problem, and anyone associated with him became collateral damage. The paternity results came back on a Friday. Richard Blackwood was indeed the father of Ashley's unborn child. I was definitively not. That afternoon, I called Ashley. I assume you got the results, I said. Yes. Her voice was flat, defeated. So now we all know the truth. Jake, I need to ask you something and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Did you know? When you first found out about the affair, did you already know the baby wasn't yours? I considered lying, but there was no point anymore. I suspected. The timing never made sense. But you let me hope. You let me think maybe we could work things out. I let you dig your own grave, Ashley. Every lie you told, every time you chose deception over honesty, you made this worse for yourself. You manipulated me. I gave you opportunities to tell the truth. You chose not to take them. Ashley was quiet for a long moment. Do you hate me? No, I said, and I meant it. I don't hate you. But I don't trust you, and I can't be married to someone I don't trust. What happens now? Now we finalize the divorce. You have your baby with Richard. You both figure out what comes next. He wants nothing to do with the baby. His lawyer says he'll pay child support, but that's it. That's between you and him. Jake? What? I'm sorry. I know it doesn't matter now, but I am truly sorry for what I did to you. To us. I believe you, I said. But sorry doesn't fix broken trust. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. I kept the house, the business, and most of our savings. Ashley received a small settlement that would help her get started on her own, plus Richard's court-ordered child support once the baby was born. Richard himself was facing criminal charges for sexual coercion and multiple civil lawsuits. His wife had taken him for everything in their divorce, and he was reportedly working at a mid-level marketing firm for a fraction of his previous salary. The whole situation had played out exactly as I'd planned, but I felt no satisfaction in it. Justice, I learned, doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it just feels necessary. Kyle threw me a divorce party the night the papers were signed, but I wasn't in a celebrating mood. I was 32 years old, starting over, processing the fact that my marriage had been built on lies. You did the right thing, Kyle said as we sat on his balcony with beers. I know it sucks now, but you protected yourself. You got out clean. Clean feels like the wrong word, I said. Financially clean. Legally clean. You're not tied to their mess. He was right. I had my house, my business, my future. Ashley and Richard had each other's chaos to deal with. I was free. 3 months later, Ashley gave birth to a daughter. She sent me a photo, a beautiful baby with Richard's dark hair and Ashley's smile. She named her Emma. I deleted the photo without responding. Victoria had advised me to block Ashley's number once the divorce was final, and I'd taken her advice. Whatever happened next in Ashley's life wasn't my concern anymore. She'd made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. I threw myself into work, expanding the business Kyle and I had built. We landed several major contracts, hired new employees, moved into a bigger office. Success became my focus because it was something I could control, something that couldn't betray me. On weekends, I renovated the house. I repainted every room, replaced furniture, changed anything that reminded me of Ashley. The guest room where I'd spent that first awful night became my home office. The kitchen where she'd confessed her affair got new cabinets and appliances. By the end of the year, it felt like a completely different house. My house. I started therapy, not because I felt broken, but because I wanted to understand what had happened and how to avoid it in the future. Dr. Sarah Mullins was practical and direct, exactly what I needed. You handled the situation strategically, she said during one session. Some people might call it calculating, but you protected yourself legally and financially. That shows good self-preservation instincts. But you also shut down emotionally. You stopped feeling anything about the situation, which helped you make rational decisions but might make it harder to trust people in the future. Trust got me into this mess. Blind trust did, but there's a difference between being naive and being open to connection. It was good advice, though I wasn't ready to act on it yet. For now, I was content with my work, my renovated house, and my carefully controlled life. One evening in December, almost a year after Ashley's confession, I was working late in my home office when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, professional clothes, nervous expression. "Mr. Brennan?" she said when I opened the door. "My name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm a reporter with the Hartford Courant. I'm working on a story about the Blackwood Industries scandal, and I was hoping I could ask you a few questions." I should have closed the door. Instead, I invited her in and made coffee while she explained her story. The criminal trial starts next month, she said. Richard Blackwood is facing charges related to multiple women, and your ex-wife's case is considered one of the strongest. I'm trying to understand the full impact of what happened. What kind of impact? Personal impact. How this affected the families involved. Your marriage ended because of Blackwood's actions, right? I considered her question carefully. My marriage ended because my wife chose to have an affair. Blackwood was involved, but Ashley made her own decisions. Jennifer took notes as I talked. She asked about the timeline, the discovery, the evidence I'd gathered. I answered honestly but carefully, sticking to facts rather than emotions. One more question, she said as she was leaving. Do you think justice was served? Blackwood lost his job, his marriage, and now he's facing criminal charges. Your ex-wife lost her marriage and her career. Do you feel like the outcome was proportional to what they did? I thought about it for a moment. I think they're experiencing the natural consequences of their choices. They knew what they were risking. And you? How are you doing? I'm rebuilding. That's all any of us can do. The article ran 2 weeks later, just before Richard's trial began. Jennifer had painted a fair picture of the situation. No heroes or villains, just people dealing with the aftermath of their decisions. Richard was convicted on 3 counts of sexual coercion and sentenced to 2 years in prison, though he'd likely serve less with good behavior. Ashley testified against him, which probably helped her own legal situation but further destroyed any chance of their relationship surviving. I didn't attend the trial, but Kyle followed it in the news and gave me updates. Ashley looked rough, he said, after the sentencing. Really rough, like she'd aged 5 years. That happens when your life falls apart, I said. Do you ever think about reaching out, checking on her? No, not even curiosity. I shook my head. She's not my responsibility anymore. She made her choices. And that was true. Whatever Ashley was dealing with, single motherhood, financial struggles, the aftermath of the trial, it wasn't my problem to solve. I'd given her 3 years of marriage and unconditional love, and she'd thrown it away for someone who'd abandoned her the moment things got difficult. Spring arrived with unusually warm weather. I was working in my backyard, planting new trees to replace the ones Ashley had chosen when my phone rang. Unknown number. Jake, it's me. Ashley's voice, though I barely recognized it. She sounded exhausted, older. How did you get this number? I got a new phone. Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you. We don't have anything to talk about. It's about Emma, my daughter. Your daughter isn't my concern. She's sick, Jake, really sick. She needs surgery and I can't afford it. Richard's in prison and his support payments barely cover rent. I've applied for assistance, but the waiting list is months long. I felt a flicker of something. Sympathy, maybe, or just basic human decency. I'm sorry to hear that. But I still don't understand why you're calling me. Because you're the only person I know who has the kind of money this surgery costs. And because I know you're a good person. Even after everything. Ashley, I'm not asking for a gift. I'll pay you back, with interest. I'll sign a contract, put up collateral, whatever you want. I just need help. I closed my eyes. How much? $35,000. For a heart surgery that needs to happen in the next month. It was a significant amount, but not enough to hurt me financially. My business was thriving, and I'd been smart with investments. I need to think about it, I said. Jake, please. She's 6 months old. She's an innocent baby who never did anything wrong. That was true. Whatever Ashley had done, whatever Richard had done, Emma was blameless. I'll call you back tomorrow, I said, and hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about a sick baby who needed surgery, about Ashley desperate and alone. about the kind of person I wanted to be versus the kind of person I'd become. In the morning, I called Victoria Sterling. "It's a terrible idea," she said, after I explained the situation. "You have no legal obligation to this child. Helping could be seen as accepting some kind of responsibility. But legally, I can loan Ashley money for medical expenses? Yes, with the right documentation. But Jake, why would you want to do this? Because a baby shouldn't suffer for her parents' mistakes." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "If you're determined to do this, we need ironclad contracts, loan documents, repayment schedules, everything in writing. And I strongly recommend you make this a one-time thing with clear boundaries." "Agreed," I called Ashley back that afternoon. "I'll loan you the money," I said, "with conditions." She started crying. "Thank you. Thank you so much. Listen to the conditions first. This is a loan, not a gift. 15% interest, 5-year repayment term. If you miss more than 2 payments, I can demand immediate repayment in full." "Yes, anything. Also, this is the last time you contact me, ever. Once this loan is repaid, we have no relationship. You don't call, you don't text, you don't send pictures or updates. We're done." "I understand. I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers. You have your lawyer review them before signing." "I don't have a lawyer anymore." "Then get one. I'm not doing this without proper documentation." The paperwork took a week to finalize. Ashley borrowed money from her parents to pay for legal review, and then signed the loan agreement at Victoria's office. I wasn't there. Victoria handled everything. Emma's surgery was successful. I learned this not from Ashley but from the local news, which ran a follow-up story about families affected by the Blackwood scandal. Ashley was interviewed briefly, mentioning an anonymous benefactor who'd helped with medical expenses. I made sure the loan payments were handled automatically through the bank. Ashley sent the money every month, always on time, always the exact amount. True to her word, she never contacted me directly. 18 months later, I met Sarah. She was a client, initially, a pediatric nurse who needed help securing her home computer network after a data breach at the hospital where she worked. Professional consultations turned into coffee meetings, which turned into dinners, which turned into something I hadn't expected to find again. Sarah was different from Ashley in every way that mattered. Where Ashley had been ambitious and image-conscious, Sarah was quietly dedicated to her work. Where Ashley had been secretive and manipulative, Sarah was direct and honest about everything, including her past relationships and their failures. "I was engaged before," she told me over dinner one evening, about 6 months after we'd started dating. "Called it off 3 weeks before the wedding." What happened? I realized I was marrying him for the wrong reasons. Because it seemed like the right time. Because my family liked him. Because I thought I should want what he offered. But I didn't actually want him. That must have been hard. It was. But not as hard as a divorce would have been 5 years later. I told her about Ashley. Not everything, but the important parts. The affair, the pregnancy that wasn't mine, the divorce. Sarah listened without judgment, asked clarifying questions, and then said something that surprised me. "It sounds like you handled a terrible situation really well. A lot of people would have made emotional decisions that hurt them long term. Some people think I was too calculating, too cold." "Were you?" I considered it. Maybe. But getting emotional wouldn't have changed what happened. It just would have made everything worse. Sarah nodded. "I work with families in crisis all the time. The ones who do best are usually the ones who can separate their emotions from their decisions, at least temporarily. It's not cold, it's survival." Dating Sarah felt different from dating Ashley. There were no games, no hidden agendas, no lies about where she was going or who she was with. When she said she'd call, she called. When she made plans, she kept them. When she said she loved me, I believed her. 2 years after meeting Sarah, I proposed. We had a small wedding, family, and close friends. Nothing elaborate. Kyle was my best man, and during his speech, he made a joke about how Sarah had debugged my trust issues, which got a bigger laugh than it should have. Our first year of marriage was everything my marriage to Ashley hadn't been. Honest, stable, built on mutual respect rather than romantic fantasies. Sarah knew about my past and accepted it without trying to fix me or change me. One evening, almost 4 years after my divorce from Ashley, Sarah and I were reviewing our finances when she noticed the automatic loan payment. "What's this monthly transfer?" she asked, pointing at the bank statement. I explained about Emma's surgery and the loan agreement. Sarah listened thoughtfully. "She's been paying on time for 4 years? Every month. Never missed a payment." "That's actually impressive. Single mother, financial struggles, but she's honoring the agreement." "It is impressive," I admitted. "Whatever Ashley's faults, she's kept her word about this." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Do you ever wonder about the little girl, Emma?" "Sometimes, but wondering doesn't change anything." "No, but she'd be about 4 now, right? Starting to develop her own personality, asking questions about her father." I looked at Sarah sharply. "What are you getting at?" "Nothing specific. I just think it's interesting that Ashley has managed to rebuild enough to make these payments. Maybe she's learned from her mistakes." "Maybe, but it doesn't matter to me." Sarah nodded, but I could see her thinking. That was one of the things I loved about her. She didn't push, but she didn't let important things go either. A few months later, the final loan payment came through. Ashley had paid off the entire amount, with interest exactly as agreed. The loan was satisfied, and legally we had no remaining connection. I expected to feel relieved, but instead, I felt empty. For 4 years, that monthly payment had been a reminder that my past actions had helped save a child's life. Now even that connection was gone. Sarah noticed my mood that evening. "Everything okay?" she asked as we cleaned up after dinner. "Ashley finished paying off the loan." "That's good, right? It's over." "It is over. Completely over." Sarah sat down next to me on the couch. "But?" "No, but. It's finished. That's what I wanted." "Jake, can I tell you something? As someone who works with families every day?" I nodded. "What you did, loaning money for that surgery, it was the right thing to do. But the way you did it, with all the boundaries and restrictions, it was also self-protective. Both of those things can be true." "What's your point?" "My point is that sometimes doing the right thing means being open to outcomes you didn't plan for. You saved that little girl's life. That matters, regardless of how you feel about her mother." I knew Sarah was right, but I wasn't ready to think about what that meant. Ashley and I had an agreement. No contact once the loan was repaid. I'd honored my part of the bargain, and she'd honored hers. The past was the past. 6 months later, I learned I was wrong about that. Kyle called me on a Saturday morning, his voice strange. "Jake, are you sitting down?" "What's wrong?" "Ashley's in the hospital. Car accident last night. It's bad." The words hit me like a physical blow. "How bad?" "She's in intensive care, coma. They don't know if she's going to make it." I sat down heavily. "What about Emma?" "That's why I'm calling. She's with Ashley's parents, but they're both in their 70s and not in great health. If Ashley doesn't make it..." Kyle didn't need to finish. "Emma would be an orphan. Richard was still in prison. Ashley's parents couldn't handle raising a young child, and there was no one else." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because Ashley's sister called me. She knows we're friends and she's desperate. She says Ashley has some kind of letter about Emma's care if anything happened to her. Your name is mentioned." "That's impossible. We haven't had contact in 2 years." "I'm just telling you what she said. Ashley apparently wrote something about you being, I don't know, a backup plan or something." I closed my eyes. Even in a coma, Ashley was creating complications in my life. I'm not Emma's father, Kyle. I have no legal obligation to her. I know that. But legal obligation and moral obligation aren't always the same thing. After Kyle hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at nothing. Sarah found me there an hour later when she came back from her morning run. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. I explained about the call, the accident, the possibility that Ashley might not survive. "Oh God," Sarah said. "That poor little girl." "It's not my problem," I said, but the words felt hollow. "Isn't it?" I looked at Sarah sharply. "No, it's not. I divorced Ashley specifically to avoid being responsible for Richard's child. But you also loaned money to save that child's life. That was different. That was a one-time medical emergency." Sarah sat across from me, her expression thoughtful. "Jake, can I ask you something honestly?" "Always." "Do you think about Emma?" "I know you say you don't, but do you?" I wanted to lie, but I'd learned not to lie to Sarah. "Sometimes. When I see kids her age at the grocery store or the park, I wonder what she looks like now, whether she's smart or funny or... Yeah, I think about her. Because you're human. Because for 4 years you had a connection to her through those loan payments. Because you know you helped save her life. That doesn't make me her father. No, but it makes you someone who cares about her welfare, even if you don't want to admit it." That afternoon, Ashley's sister Rachel called me directly. "Mr. Brennan, this is Rachel Martinez, Ashley's sister. I hope you don't mind me calling. How did you get this number?" "Ashley gave it to me, years ago. She said if anything ever happened to her, I should call you about Emma." "I don't understand." "Ashley wrote a letter. About Emma's care if she died. She named you as someone who might be willing to help." "That's not possible. We agreed to have no contact after the loan was repaid." "She honored that agreement," Rachel said quickly. "She never called you, never tried to see you. But she also never forgot what you did for Emma. The surgery, the loan that saved her life." I was quiet for a moment. "What does the letter say?" It asks, "It asks if you would consider taking guardianship of Emma if there's no other option. It says you're the only person she trusts to give Emma a good life." "Rachel, I can't. I'm remarried now. My wife and I have our own life planned." "I understand. But would you at least meet Emma before you decide? She's scared and confused, and she keeps asking where her mommy is." Against my better judgment, I agreed. Emma was small for her age, with Ashley's blonde hair and serious dark eyes that reminded me of Richard. She sat quietly in Ashley's parents' living room, coloring in a princess coloring book while the adults talked around her. "Emma, sweetheart," Rachel said gently. "This is Mr. Jake. He was a friend of Mommy's." Emma looked up at me with those serious eyes. "Is Mommy coming home soon?" The question broke something in my chest. "I don't know, sweetheart. The doctors are taking very good care of her." Emma nodded and went back to her coloring. "Grandma says Mommy is sleeping in the hospital, but it's been 3 days. She must be very tired." I spent an hour there, mostly just watching Emma color and listening to her chatter about her favorite TV shows and her stuffed animals. She was bright, articulate, and heartbreakingly innocent about her situation. On the drive home, I called Sarah. "How was it?" she asked. "She's beautiful, smart, looks like Ashley but acts more serious. She has no idea how bad things are." "And how do you feel?" "Confused, angry, protective." I paused. I didn't expect to feel protective. "But you do." "Yeah, I do." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking Ashley manipulated me one last time. She knew if I met Emma, I wouldn't be able to walk away. Or she knew you're a good person who wouldn't let a child suffer if you could help." Same thing, different perspective. When I got home, Sarah was waiting with Emma's letter. Rachel had given me a copy. The handwriting was Ashley's, dated just 6 months earlier. Jake, the letter began. If you're reading this, something has happened to me, and Emma needs help. I know I have no right to ask anything of you after what I did to our marriage. I know you owe me nothing, and you owe Emma even less. But I also know who you are. You're the man who loaned money to help a stranger's child have surgery. You're the man who could have destroyed Richard and me completely, but chose justice over revenge. You're the man who honored a loan agreement even when it meant staying connected to a situation you wanted to escape. Emma is 4 years old. She's smart and funny and kind. She loves books and animals and singing off-key. She asks a million questions and gives the best hugs in the world. She deserves better than I've been able to give her, but she especially deserves better than the foster care system. I'm not asking you to adopt her. I'm not asking you to love her. I'm just asking you to give her a chance at the kind of stable, honest life you would have given our children if I hadn't destroyed everything. If you can't or won't help, I understand. But if there's any part of you that remembers the man who wanted to be a father, please consider giving Emma what I never could, a parent who puts her needs first. Thank you for everything you've already done for her. Thank you for being better than I deserved. Ashley. I read the letter twice, then handed it to Sarah. She's good, Sarah said after reading it. Really good. She managed to ask for everything while claiming to ask for nothing. Is that your professional opinion or your personal one? Both. But that doesn't mean she's wrong about Emma needing help. Sarah, I can't ask you to take on someone else's child, especially Ashley's child. Sarah set down the letter and looked at me seriously. Jake, I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about this since Kyle called this morning. Thinking about what? About kids. Our kids. We've been married almost 2 years and we've talked about starting a family, but we keep putting it off. Better financial situation, bigger house, more stable business. That's smart planning. It's also fear. My fear, mostly. I'm 34 years old and I keep waiting for the perfect time to have children. But watching you today, seeing how you reacted to Emma, I realized something. What? There's no perfect time, and maybe the universe is offering us something we didn't expect. I stared at her. You're seriously considering this? I'm seriously considering what kind of people we want to be. Emma isn't our responsibility, but she's also an innocent child who needs help. If we can provide that help, it would change everything about our lives. Yes, it would. But so would having our own children eventually. We talked until late that night, going through every practical consideration. Finances, space, our careers, the legal implications of guardianship. Sarah had done her research. As a pediatric nurse, she understood the foster care system and its limitations. The average foster child moves 3 times before aging out, she said. Emma would face years of instability, probably trauma, and limited opportunities for a normal childhood. And if we take her, she gets stability, a home, parents who can afford to give her opportunities. And honestly, Jake, I think she gets parents who will love her. You think you could love her, even knowing who her parents are? Sarah smiled sadly. I already love her a little bit, and I only heard about her this morning. Kids are easy to love when you let yourself. The next day, Ashley died without regaining consciousness. The funeral was small. Ashley's family, a few co-workers, and me. I stood in the back, watching Emma in her black dress, holding her grandmother's hand and asking quiet questions about why everyone was crying. After the service, Rachel approached me. Have you thought about what we discussed? She asked. Yes, my wife and I would like to pursue guardianship. Rachel's relief was immediate and overwhelming. Thank you. Thank you so much. There will be legal processes, home studies, background checks, court hearings. Whatever you need. Emma's grandparents are grateful for this. They know they can't give her what she needs. The legal process took 3 months. During that time, Emma stayed with her grandparents, but Sarah and I visited twice a week. We took her to parks, museums, children's movies. Slowly, carefully, we began building a relationship. Emma was everything Ashley's letter had described. Intelligent, curious, affectionate once she warmed up to you. She asked endless questions about everything, loved stories about princesses and dragons, and had an impressive vocabulary for a 4-year-old. Where do clouds come from? She asked one afternoon as we walked through the zoo. Water evaporates from oceans and lakes, I explained. It rises up into the sky and forms clouds. Why? Because warm air rises, and when it gets high enough, it cools down and turns back into water droplets. Why? Because, well, that's just how temperature works. Hot things want to become cool. Why? Sarah laughed. She's going to make a great scientist someday. Emma beamed at the praise, then immediately asked why giraffes had such long necks. The day we got legal guardianship, Emma moved into our house with 2 suitcases of clothes and a box of toys. We'd converted my home office into her bedroom, painted it pink at her request, and filled it with books and stuffed animals. That first night, Emma couldn't sleep. She padded into our bedroom at midnight, holding her favorite stuffed elephant. Jake? Sarah? I can't sleep. Sarah sat up immediately. What's wrong, sweetheart? Bad dream? No, this house is different. It sounds different. I got out of bed and knelt down to Emma's level. Different how? Quiet. Grandma and Grandpa's house made lots of noises. Creaky floors and the old refrigerator and the neighbor's dog. This house is too quiet. Would you like to sleep in here tonight? Sarah asked. Just until you get used to the house sounds? Emma nodded eagerly and climbed into bed between us. She fell asleep within minutes, one small hand resting on my arm. No going back now, Sarah whispered in the dark. No, I agreed. No going back. The adjustment period wasn't easy. Emma had nightmares about her mother, asked difficult questions about death and abandonment, and occasionally tested boundaries in ways that broke my heart. She was grieving, confused, and trying to figure out if Sarah and I would abandon her too. But gradually, she began to settle in. She started calling us by our first names instead of Mr. Jake and Miss Sarah. She claimed space in our house, leaving toys in the living room and books on the kitchen counter. She established routines: Saturday morning pancakes, bedtime stories, Sunday afternoon bike rides. 6 months after Emma moved in, she asked the question I'd been dreading. Jake, was my daddy a bad man? We were building a puzzle together on the living room floor while Sarah made dinner. Emma's question was casual, but I could feel its weight. Why do you ask? Because people whisper about him sometimes. At Grandma's church when they think I can't hear. They say he did bad things. I set down the puzzle piece I was holding. Your biological father made some mistakes that hurt people, but that doesn't mean you're bad or that you should be ashamed. What kind of mistakes? Adult mistakes. Things you don't need to worry about. Emma was quiet for a moment, studying the puzzle. Am I like him? You're like lots of people, Emma. You have your mom's hair and your dad's eyes, but your personality is all your own. And personality is what matters most. Do you think I'm good? I think you're wonderful, kind, smart, funny, curious. You're exactly the kind of person the world needs more of. Emma smiled and went back to the puzzle. Good. I want to be like you and Sarah, not like my real daddy. That evening, after Emma was in bed, Sarah and I talked about the conversation. She's going to have more questions as she gets older, Sarah said. About Richard, about why Ashley died, about her adoption story. I know. We'll answer them honestly, age-appropriately. Are you prepared for her to want to know more about Richard when she's older? Maybe even want to meet him? I considered this. Richard had been released from prison after serving 18 months and was reportedly working at a small marketing firm in another state. He'd never shown any interest in Emma, had never paid more than court-ordered support. If she wants to know about him when she's old enough to understand, we'll help her find answers. But I'm not worried about her wanting a relationship with him. He's never tried to be part of her life. And if that changes, then we'll deal with it. But Emma knows who her parents are now. She knows who chose to love her and who chose to walk away. 3 years later, Emma was 7 and had been living with us for almost as long as she'd lived with Ashley. She called us mom and dad now, though she sometimes still talked about her first mommy with the matter-of-fact acceptance that children bring to complex situations. We'd legally adopted her 6 months earlier, after Emma asked why her last name was different from ours. The adoption process had been surprisingly emotional, standing in court, promising to love and protect this child who had already become the center of our lives. Emma thrived in our house. She was an excellent student, played soccer, took piano lessons, and had strong opinions about everything from bedtime stories to breakfast cereal. She was ours in every way that mattered. One evening, as I tucked her into bed, Emma asked another one of her penetrating questions. "Dad, do you think my first mommy would be happy about me living with you and Mom?" I thought about Ashley's letter, about the woman who had betrayed me so thoroughly, but had also recognized what Emma needed. "Yes," I said honestly. "I think she would be very happy. She loved you very much and she wanted the best life possible for you. Even though you and her weren't friends anymore? Even though we weren't friends? Sometimes love means wanting good things for people even when you can't be part of their life anymore." Emma nodded solemnly. "That's what Mom says about her patients at the hospital. She wants them to get better even when they can't come see her anymore." "Exactly like that." "Good. I want my first mommy to be happy, even if she can't be here." After Emma fell asleep, I found Sarah grading papers at the kitchen table. She'd gone back to school to get her master's degree in nursing education. "How was bedtime?" she asked. "Philosophical." She asked if Ashley would be happy about the adoption. Sarah smiled. "And what did you tell her?" "The truth. That Ashley wanted the best for Emma, even if she couldn't provide it herself." "Do you believe that?" I sat down across from Sarah, thinking about the question. "Yeah, I do. Ashley made terrible choices that destroyed our marriage and hurt a lot of people. But I think she genuinely loved Emma and wanted her to have a better life. It must be strange, feeling grateful to someone who hurt you so badly." "It is strange, but I am grateful. Emma is the best thing that ever happened to us." Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. "She really is. Do you ever wonder what our life would have been like if none of this had happened? If Ashley hadn't cheated? If we'd had our own children instead?" Sarah considered this. "Sometimes. But then I look at Emma, and I can't imagine loving any child more than I love her. She's ours, Jake. Not because of biology, but because of choice. Every day we choose to be her parents, and she chooses to be our daughter. No regrets? None. You?" I thought about the long journey from Ashley's betrayal to this kitchen table, this conversation about the daughter we'd never planned to have. None. All of it. The affair, the divorce, the pain. It led us here. It led us to Emma. And to each other. And to each other. That night, I lay awake thinking about forgiveness and justice, about the difference between getting what you want and getting what you need. I'd wanted a traditional family with the woman I'd married. Instead, I got a daughter I adored with the woman I was meant to love. Ashley had taken one future away from me, but in doing so, she'd given me a different one I wouldn't trade for anything. In the end, maybe that was justice after all. Not the calculated revenge I'd once planned, but the unexpected grace of a child who called me dad and meant it, who had no idea she'd saved my life as much as I'd saved hers. Emma was right to ask if her first mommy would be happy. Ashley would be happy, I realized. Despite everything that had gone wrong between us, despite all the pain and betrayal and legal battles, she'd succeeded in the thing that mattered most to her, giving her daughter the stable, loving home she'd never been able to provide. Sometimes the best revenge is letting go of revenge entirely and choosing to build something better from the wreckage. Sometimes justice looks less like punishment and more like redemption. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, the worst thing that ever happens to you leads directly to the best thing that ever happens to you. Emma's adoption certificate hung in our hallway, next to school photos and family vacation pictures. Every day when I came home from work, I saw her face smiling back at me. Ashley's daughter, Richard's daughter, but most importantly, our daughter. The woman who had betrayed me had also, in her final act, given me the greatest gift of my life. It was a complicated legacy, but then again, most important things are